Human curiosity about intimacy takes many different forms, and one particular act that has grown in popularity is the practice of oral contact with the backside. Men with women, women with men, and men with men are all known to engage in it. Despite stereotypes that it belongs exclusively to same-sex encounters, surveys reveal that roughly 3 in 10 heterosexual couples also include it in their intimate lives. The growing openness around this act, however, has raised an important question. Could this pleasurable exploration be riskier than it first appears? Behind the humor, there are hidden biological concerns, and scientists have begun tracing connections between this act and illnesses that many people never realized could come from it. To understand the danger, you have to step into the invisible world of microbes. One group of bacteria known as Shigella is particularly notorious. Each year, it is estimated that close to 188 million people around the world suffer from infections linked to it. The symptoms aren't glamorous: constant diarrhea, pounding headaches, bloating, stomach cramps, and something called tenesmus, which is the frustrating feeling that you need to relieve yourself, but when you try, nothing actually happens. The way these bacteria normally reach a person is through the mouth. If someone preparing food hasn't washed properly, the germs can cling to their hands, transfer onto the meal, and once consumed, create a full-blown case of food poisoning. What makes them especially dangerous is that you don't need a large dose. A handful of bacteria, even as few as 5 tiny invaders, can sneak through your digestive defenses and start wreaking havoc. The reason they're so effective is that they aren't easily destroyed by stomach acid. Instead, they carry special chemicals that suppress your body's natural antibacterial defenses. This allows them to slip further into the digestive tract, invading the lining of your colon, damaging cells, and causing inflammation that leaves you running to the bathroom over and over. They also interfere with how your intestines absorb water and nutrients, which only worsens the misery. While most people picture spoiled food as the culprit, research began to show that something else was happening, especially among communities of men who were getting sick at higher rates than the general population. These unusual patterns drew the attention of public health experts. In many parts of the developing world, Shigella spreads because of poor sanitation, unclean water, and inadequate hygiene. But in North America and Europe, where clean water and sewage systems are common, outbreaks pointed to a different route of transmission. Investigations revealed that fecal-oral pathways were at the core, touching contaminated bathroom surfaces, swallowing pool water, daycare kids passing germs, and crucially, intimate oral contact with the anus. A series of outbreaks in cities such as Seattle, San Francisco, and London, along with a large study in Denmark, revealed a striking connection between those infected and their sexual practices. It became evident that in some cases, people weren't getting ill from tainted meals but from intimate play with partners who carried the bacteria. One early investigation around the year 2000 looked at more than 200 cases within half a year and found that nearly 3/4 of those affected had engaged in rimming recently. In the Danish study involving thousands of men, those who reported oral anal activity were more likely to be diagnosed with both Shigella and another microbe called Campylobacter. Campylobacter is more commonly associated with undercooked poultry and meat, yet it can also be carried in the intestines and passed along in the same intimate way. What makes these germs so insidious is that they remain inside the fecal matter of someone who has recovered, sometimes for up to 2 weeks after all symptoms have vanished. That means a person who feels perfectly fine could still be carrying and passing along these microbes without knowing. When you do contract an infection, the signs usually appear within 1 to 2 days. For most healthy individuals, the body manages to push the invaders out within about a week. But even after the diarrhea subsides, the germs may remain hidden in the intestines and continue to spread. That hidden phase is why these illnesses can circle quietly through communities without anyone realizing the source. Beyond Shigella and Campylobacter, there are other hazards too. Ordinary strains of E. coli, viruses such as hepatitis A, and even parasites can all travel this route. There is a slight chance of sexually transmitted infections being shared as well, though that risk is generally far higher through penetrative vaginal or anal intercourse than through oral contact. Still, The most consistent link found by scientists has been with the outbreaks of Shigella. This doesn't mean people must abandon the practice altogether. Instead, awareness and caution become vital. Preventive measures are straightforward but important. Doctors recommend that before any such play, both partners wash thoroughly with soap. Not just hands but genitals and the anal region itself, including the small stretch of skin between the anus and the genital area. During sex, people should pay attention to transitions between different kinds of activity, since bacteria collected from the backside can travel to other places like the urethra, where they can cause painful urinary tract infections. Some couples also choose to use latex barriers as an extra layer of protection. Another key piece of advice is timing. If someone has recently been sick with food poisoning, they should avoid any oral anal play for at least 2 full weeks after their final symptoms. This waiting period allows time for bacteria to clear completely from the body. Beyond hygiene and timing, there's the obvious but sometimes overlooked reminder. Make sure your partner is healthy before diving into something that can share microbes so directly. In terms of treatment, most cases of Shigella infection resolve on their own without medication. The immune system, given enough time, usually wins. However, those with weakened immunity or anyone experiencing prolonged symptoms should consult a medical professional. In some cases, antibiotics are prescribed to help clear the infection more quickly. Doctors stress that prevention is far better than relying on treatment afterward, especially since bacterial strains can sometimes resist medication. The rise of this intimate trend is a reminder that human sexuality often intersects with biology in unexpected ways. Something that seems like light-hearted experimentation carries genuine health consequences. But by talking openly about the risks, and by understanding how simple preventive steps can reduce them, people can make more informed decisions. Just as safe practices were promoted during past public health campaigns around other sexual behaviors, awareness here is about allowing enjoyment without the hidden price of illness. And ultimately, while the idea might make some laugh, the science behind it is serious, pointing to the importance of respecting the invisible world of microbes that live with us every day. Human relationships are full of experimentation, and intimacy often pushes people to test boundaries that older generations may not have spoken about openly. The act of placing one's mouth on another's backside has traveled from being a whispered joke into something people talk about more freely. The popularity isn't confined to one group. Surveys confirm that straight couples as well as queer partners engage in it. While pleasure and curiosity fuel its rise, researchers have raised concerns that it can also become a hidden pathway for disease. What feels playful in the moment can carry microbes from one body into another, producing illnesses that at first glance look no different from ordinary food poisoning. The science of how this happens begins with the bacteria that live in the gut. Shigella is one of the most studied culprits, causing stomach upset for close to 188 million individuals worldwide each year. It produces watery bowel movements, painful bloating, stomach cramps, and the sensation of needing to relieve yourself without actually being able to. These bacteria normally spread when unwashed hands contaminate food, but intimate oral contact with the anus can mimic that same route of exposure. What makes it dangerous is the low dose required. Only a few organisms, sometimes as little as 5, can bypass stomach defenses and set up an infection. Once inside, they injure the lining of the intestines, cause inflammation, and disrupt absorption of water and nutrients. This damage leads to diarrhea and dehydration, leaving sufferers drained and miserable. The outbreaks that drew attention to this mode of transmission weren't in rural villages without plumbing, but in large Western cities with advanced sanitation systems. Men who engaged in this practice reported stomach bugs at noticeably higher rates. Studies from Seattle, San Francisco, and London showed consistent patterns, and a wide survey in Denmark confirmed it further. In one study around the year 2000, nearly 3/4 of people who developed Shigella had engaged in this sexual act in the weeks before falling ill. The evidence added up, leaving experts convinced that what had been dismissed as an unlikely risk was in fact a real and recurring problem. Shigella isn't the only microbe passed along in this way. Campylobacter, another bacteria, is normally connected with raw or undercooked poultry, yet researchers discovered that it too could be carried in the intestines, and transferred by oral contact with fecal traces. The tricky part about both these pathogens is that even after someone recovers from the main wave of diarrhea and abdominal cramps, they may still be contagious. Fecal matter can contain the bacteria for as long as 2 weeks beyond the last symptoms. That means one partner may feel completely fine while still capable of passing germs to someone else. Because of this hidden period of contagiousness, infections can spread quietly through networks without anyone tracing back the true source. The consequences of exposure show up quickly. Within 1 or 2 days, a person might feel stomach pain, nausea, or an urgent need to use the bathroom. If their immune system is strong, the illness often passes within 5 to 7 days. But the discomfort is severe while it lasts, and there remains the chance of transmitting the microbes even after apparent recovery. Beyond Shigella and Campylobacter, doctors warn of other risks. Hepatitis A, for example, can spread through fecal-oral contact and causes liver inflammation that brings weeks of fatigue, yellowing of the skin, and digestive issues. E. coli and parasites can travel the same way. Although the chance of sexually transmitted infections moving through this specific activity is lower compared to penetrative intercourse, the risk still exists, especially if sores or cuts are present in the mouth or anal region. Knowing these dangers doesn't mean intimacy must be abandoned. Rather, it calls for responsibility and preparation. Thorough washing before engaging in oral anal contact is strongly advised. Soap and water reduce the amount of bacteria present and create a cleaner environment. Paying attention to sequence also matters. Going from anal contact directly to vaginal or oral activity can move harmful bacteria into places they don't belong, resulting in urinary tract infections or other complications. Latex or dental barriers add an additional shield, blocking direct exchange and cutting down the risk further. These tools may not be seen as passionate, but they have been proven effective at reducing transmission. Timing is just as important as hygiene. If you or your partner has recently had a gastrointestinal illness, even if symptoms are gone, waiting a minimum of 2 weeks is recommended. This pause ensures that leftover bacteria are no longer lingering in the digestive tract. In the same way people avoid kissing when one has the flu, refraining for a short period here helps protect both partners. Choosing healthy partners who are free of infection is another common sense step. The safer the conditions, the less likely microbes will crash the party. When infections do occur, most otherwise healthy people recover without medical intervention. Drinking fluids, resting, and allowing the body's immune system to handle the invaders usually works. But for individuals with compromised immunity, such as those living with HIV or undergoing chemotherapy, medical help may be necessary. Prolonged symptoms that don't fade after a week also warrant a doctor's visit. In some cases, antibiotics are prescribed, though doctors are careful because resistance can build if the drugs are overused. The larger point is that avoiding infection in the first place through prevention is far easier than treating it after the fact. The conversation around this form of intimacy shows how sexual expression and microbiology intersect in surprising ways. What once seemed like a private, light-hearted exploration has become the subject of serious research. By studying outbreaks, doctors and scientists have been able to piece together the hidden role that these behaviors play in spreading disease. For those who choose to engage, the lesson is not prohibition but mindfulness. Simple steps, washing, barriers, timing make a major difference in safety. Talking openly about these realities breaks down shame and equips people with the knowledge to protect themselves. Pleasure and health don't have to be at odds. With awareness, they can coexist. The human body is a host to countless microscopic passengers, and respecting that unseen world is part of navigating intimacy in a healthy way.